Hello everyone. Can someone please confirm if I'm properly audible now?
Yes,
Yes,
sir,
sir,
you
you
are.
are properly audible.
All right. Thank you. So there was some issue with my system. Uh, anyway, let's quickly get started. Okay, so, all right. So as you all know, the agenda for today's session is to revise some of the concepts, or at least revise 3 of the weeks. Those 3 weeks include week 7, 8, and 9. So my plan is to first give you an overview of all the concepts that have been taught as part of those 3 weeks, and after that I'll try to touch upon the questions from the mock examination for the end term examination, which belong to these 3 particular weeks. So this is what my plan is, and let me quickly get started with that. I will start sharing my screen. The live streaming, I guess, is already started. So please let me know as and when my screen becomes visible to you all. Is my screen visible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, visible.
Thank you. Okay. So let me quickly open the Seek portal. Link of the portal here in the chat. I'll quickly navigate to that link itself. If anyone has it. Does anyone have the Seek portal link?
To the course, sir.
Yeah, to the course.
Yes, sir. One sec.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I am hoping that my screen is now visible. The Seek portal is also visible.
Yes, sir.
All right. So weeks 7, 8, and 9 is what my focus is going to be for this particular session. So in week 7, you all were introduced with the concept of arrays and pointers. In week 8, you were introduced with some user-defined data types. Those include structures, enums, as well as unions. And in week 9, we introduced the concept of dynamic memory allocation. So these are the three major concepts that I wish to discuss in today's session. And let me quickly start with the very first one, that is going to be arrays. So I will quickly come to the topic where I will try to explain you that why do we actually need the concept of array. Firstly, let me try to define what actually an array is. So I hope my paint screen is visible to all. So arrays, they are basically what? They are collection of homogeneous elements. This is what the simplest definition of arrays could be. Collection of homogeneous elements. So what happens is whenever we are writing programs, whenever we are writing C program, or even if we are writing program in any other programming language as well, many a times what happens is uh, we kind of require a storage where we want to work with multiple values having similar data types. Well, the example that I take on very often in order to explain the concept of array is that if you are supposed to be accepting the input, let's say the marks of 10 students, you are supposed to be writing a program which should accept uh, marks of 10 different students. So definitely if you don't know the concept of array, you would be required to work with 10 different variables. So let's say you would say int a, b, c, d, e, and you will end up creating a lot of variables depending upon the number of uh, values that you want to accept as input. Let's say the requirement changes and you don't need to accept marks of 10 students. Instead, you need to accept it for 12 students. In that case, the complexities are only going to increase because you will have to change your program every time. You will have to increase the number of variables you are working with. And one and most, you will have to write as many as scanf statements for every input that you wish to accept. So let's say if you are writing one scanf statement for accepting input in a variable named a, you will have to repeat this entire code or repeat this entire function call 10 more times, 12 more times, depending upon how many inputs you wish to receive. Okay. So in order to make these things simpler, what we do is we use the concept of arrays. In arrays, what we try to do is we try to create a collection of homogeneous elements. That means it is a collection of elements which are having the same data type. So just like I created 10 or 12 variables here a, b, c, d, e, and it will, of course, the list will go on, and they all belong to the same data type, that is int. Similarly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an array, and in order to create an array, there is a very simple syntax that you need to follow. The very first thing is going to be the data type. You first have to specify what type of elements you want to work with. After that, you will have to specify the name any other variable, just like we were doing it with a, b, c, d, e, etc. After identifier, you will have to use these subscripts. So these subscripts, or you can also call them square brackets. This is mandatory for you to use when you are working with arrays. And this subscript is the place where you are supposed to define that how many of such elements do you require. So if with this example that we were assuming before that we want to accept input marks of 10 or 12 students, that means I will be needing 10 different variables or 10 different places to store 10 different values. So here I can write 10, and this way the C compiler will understand that I have to create memory for 10 different integer type memories. Variables. So this data type is going to be like int. Identifier, let's say I'm taking it as ARR, and this 10 I am going to remain this. I am going to keep it the same. So this 10 is what? This 10 is the number of elements. number of elements that you require. So when you write a syntax like this, int arr 10, this is an information to the compiler that 10 different variables having size or having data type integers have to be created. Now the thing is, okay, compiler will understand that memory for 10 different variables have to be allocated. But in the previous case, we had a very specific alias for each of the values that we were working with. Let's say the first student marks were stored in A, the second student marks were stored in B, the third student marks were stored in C variable, D variable, and E variable, and so on. So here, when we have written a syntax like this, we have only one variable available, that is ARR. Now, how do we differentiate between the different values that we want to work with? So what does the compiler do is, compiler says that, okay, you have said that ARR 10 is what you want to have. So ARR0 is going to be treated as the one variable. ARR1 is going to be treated as the second variable. ARR2 is going to be treated as the third variable. ARR3 is going to be treated as the fourth variable. This list will go on, and can someone tell me what will be the last variable?
Sir, 9.
It is going to be 9. The reason it is not 10 is because we are starting from 0. And if we are starting from 0, that means we will have to stop at 1 less than the actual size of that array. The actual size of the array is 10, and we have to stop this at 1 less than the actual size, that is 1 less than 10, and it is equals to 9. So ARR9 is going to be the last variable that will exist in this particular array if the size is 10. And what do we call these 0, 1, 2, 3, or these 9 that we are using here? These are known as indexes. These are known as indexes. That means these indexes are allowing you to use a single variable, that is ARR, but as different aliases for some different values, because A, B, C, D, E, they all were referring to some different locations. They all were having some different values. In the similar way, ARR0 will be completely independent of ARR1, 2, 3, and so on. So if you have written a syntax like this, then you will get access to 10 different variables, ARR0, ARR1 till ARR9. So this is how the syntax would become much simpler as long as the variables are concerned. That means you don't have to create 10 different variables anymore. What you need to do is you just need to write a syntax like this. But now can someone tell me, initially I said that if you are creating 10 different variables, then you are supposed to be writing 10 different scanf statements. But even if I am saying that I have a variable like this, and the different variables will be like ARR0, ARR1, ARR2, don't I need to use 10 different scanf statements for each of this? Is there a way for me to get rid of writing 10 different scanf statements for accepting each input at each different index? Is there a shortcut for me? Exactly. Now, all of you have studied about loops. Loops are what? Loops are used to execute a statement multiple times. Execute multiple times. So what all I need to do here is I simply need to write this scanf statements only once, and I need to put it inside a loop specifying that how many times I want this statement to run. That means if I want to accept 10 inputs, I will create a loop that will start from 0, it will end at 9, and it is going to repeat this scanf statement 10 times for me in the program without actually requiring to write this scanf statement 10 times as part of my program. Right? So one thing is you don't need to create these many variables. The second thing is you are also going away from this clumsy type of syntax or repetition of code. And that is why we call array as collection of homogeneous elements. Why are we calling them collection of homogeneous elements and not heterogeneous elements? Because here we have to specify the data type. If we are saying that this ARR is going to be of integer type, then all the variables that are starting from ARR0 and going all the way up to ARR9, they all must be of integer type. You cannot say that I want to store a string type of value or a float type of value in one of these variables. No, that's not possible. If you are saying int ARR10, then all these 10 variables or 10 different variables or 10 different indexes that you are getting, they can only store integer type of values. Nothing more than that. So
Sir,
yes,
sir, can you show us a program using this array concept?
of course.
Yes, sir.
So let me quickly create a. I'll open any C compiler. Okay. So see, this is just one of the online compilers that I'm using here, so that I don't have to run any local compiler or something. If you want, you can also go to Replit, but since I'm using a different system today, so I won't have the Replit account. I mean, I don't have the Replit setup right now, and I don't want to waste time doing that right now. So what I'm doing is I am going to create a variable just like I showed you in the paint. So I'm creating a variable ARR and the size is 10. That means I want to have the access to 10 different variables here. They all should be of the same data type, that is integer. Now, since I want to accept values in all of these 10 different variables that I have created, I am going to run a loop here. So let's say the loop is going to start from 0. The loop is going to end at 9, or you can say less than 10, anything would work, and I++. And here I am going to write scanf %d. Okay, this should be in lowercase, and I'll have to specify which variable I want to accept this input in. So I will say ARR. What should I write here?
Sir,
It should be
10.
I.
it should be I, because the value of I will vary from 0 to 9, and that is what I want to be put here whenever this scanf function runs. Okay. Once I do that, I will have 10 different values that I would have entered as input. Just for the demonstration purposes, I am going to be using the size as 5 so that I don't need to enter 10 different inputs. Okay. And okay. After that, I will have to run the same loop again. Can someone tell me why I'm running the same loop?
Sir, to print, sir.
Exactly. This time, I want to print the same elements that I had provided as input. So which function shall I use if I want to print something? I will have to use scanf. Is there anything else that I need to change in this syntax? Do you think that I need to change anything? Or if the program looks okay? Uh,
Sir, it will print only 6 elements, sir.
it will print only 6 elements. Why do you think only 6? Or why do you think even 6?
So I think it should print only 5 elements because it is less than 5, na? So it will
Exactly.
not count
Since it
5.
is less than 5, yeah, of course, 5 will not be counted. So it will start from 0, it will go up to 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? All right. So now what will happen is as soon as I'll run the program is supposed to be waiting until I'll provide some input to it. So let's say if I click on run, nothing will happen. The program has completed the compilation, and now it is under the execution phase. So it is waiting for me to enter some input. Let's say the first number that I'm providing as input is 12. The second number that I'll provide as input is 89. The third number, let's say, is 56. The fourth number is 34. And the last number is, let's say, 52. And as soon as I'll hit enter, I will complete providing the input to 5 numbers, and it is going to simply print these 5 numbers to me as part of the output. So you can see this is what is providing me as the output, but I have not added extra spaces here or extra new line characters, but let me try adding those. Okay, what is missing here is I should not have used this address operator. This address operator is also one of the issues. So whenever we are using printf statement, this address operator or ampersand operator is not supposed to be used. It is only required when you are using scanf function. So I will use this /n here so that each of my input is separated or is put into a different line. So if I click on run and enter five different inputs, 3, 8, 12, 34, and 90. Once I do that, you can see these are the 5 numbers that I have gotten as output as well: 3, 8, 12, 34, 90. Let's say if I want to print these numbers in the opposite order, that means I want to print the last number first and the first number last. Can someone tell me what can I do here?
Sir, I minus minus, sir.
Okay, if I can do I minus minus here, anything else that I need to change?
Reverse order, sir.
Okay, what else I need to change? What is the logic? What is the
Sir,
place? where the
I
change is-
equal to 5, sir. So I equal to 4.
Good. I equals to 4. And anything else? Then we will also have to change this condition, I less than 5, right? What should be the new condition?
Less than equal to 4. Greater than equal to 0.
Greater than equal to 0. Yep, correct. That's true. And in this way, we will be able to print all the elements in the reverse order. So let's say 12, 56, 23, 90, 31. So firstly, we are getting 31, then 90, then 23, then 56, and 12. So we are simply getting all the elements in the opposite order. Right? I hope this is understood to all.
Sir, what if you want to make a program that take 5 inputs and at the end it will add all the input numbers?
Okay, you can do that as well. For
What
that,
will
what you can do,
yeah.
do you want to add something?
If you want to add all these 5 numbers.
Okay. So what, anything else? I mean, I'll tell you the solution for that, but is there anything else that you want to add to it?
We can add that if the number exceed 100, it will make it 10% less, shows 10% less or something different.
Okay, that you can do. So let's say I'm creating another variable, say 0. And when you are accepting this input, you exactly know what that input is. And you can say sum equals to sum plus ARRI. So you will keep on adding this input. Right now, I'm not telling you about the percentage part. I'm just simply telling you how do you add up all the numbers. That's all. Currently, this is what I'm trying to show you. Okay. And at the end, I would simply try to print the value of this sum. That's all. Nothing fancy here. I won't even print all these elements. The only thing that I'll do here is to print the sum along with this message, that is try program is, I mean, whatever the existing message was. So if I click on run here, 23, 1, 5, 8, 3. If I do that, it gives me 40, and this is supposed to be the sum. So 23 plus 1, 24, 24 plus 5, 29, 29 plus 8, that is 37, 37 plus 3 is going to be 40. And the condition that you were saying that in case if ARRI is say greater than 100, then you are only supposed to add, I don't know, what did you say, some 10% of it, something like that.
No, so I'm saying it will reduce the 10% of total sum and
Okay,
provide
it will
the
reduce the 10% of total sum. Okay. Okay, so sum is equal to sum minus sum divided by 10. Right? This will happen if this condition is true, but before that, we will of course add sum equals to sum plus ARRI. So this is how you can write your logic. I mean, once you know that what the actual number is, you should be able to apply any logic, with an ease. Just like, I'm putting a condition here, and what I'm doing is I'm subtracting the 1/10 part of sum in case the value of this particular element is greater than 100.
Sir, in 12th statement, why don't we use sum is less than 100 or greater than 100? Sum is greater
I
than
mean,
100.
this depends on you. What you want to compare. You want to check whether that element is greater than 100 or sum is greater than 100. So if you want to check if sum is greater than 100, then you should put sum.
Okay.
But if you want to check that particular element is greater than 100, then you will have to use ARRI. Okay. So it depends upon what logic you want to perform here. That's all. Okay. Any issues with this particular program? Anyone?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So just like we were working with these arrays, till now we have seen the examples of integer type arrays. Similarly, what can happen is the character arrays can also exist. Just like I had said that int ARR10, and I was only able to store integer inputs. I could also say char, and say this time I could say str or something, and I can again specify the number of characters that I want to hold. Okay, so if I say str10, that means I should be able to store 10 characters. Remember, these are 10 characters and not numbers. So even if you are writing a number, say 78, then in that case 7 is one character, 8 is another character. So 78 would require actually two characters, but with the help of numbers you were only able to work with one variable. But when you are working with characters, these will be treated as two different characters. So just like integer arrays, you can also work with character arrays. And this concept of character arrays is actually known as strings, right? And the simple definition of string is, just like we studied about array, it is collection of homogeneous elements. String is collection of, can someone guess? Collection of
Characters.
exactly, collection of characters. So the collection of characters is also known as string. Though C does not have a direct support for a string data type, but if you would try exploring other programming languages, they do provide a support for string type of variables as well. C does not have a direct support for that. If you want to work with strings, you will have to create a character array like this. If you will go to the next part of C, that is CPP, C++, even in that programming language, you will have to use another library in order to bring this extra data type, that is string. Okay, so this is all about arrays. The bottom line is that they are just collection of homogeneous elements. If you are creating an array to be of integer type, you have to make sure that each and every element of that array, depending upon what size you have chosen, each and every element is going to be of the same data type. It cannot change. So if you want to have or if you have a requirement where you would want to work with multiple variables but with heterogeneous data types, then you will have to figure out some midway, like whatever values that are homogeneous in nature, you can club all of those in array, and you can create multiple arrays depending upon the type of groups that you have. Let's say you want to work with 50 values where 7 belong to integer, 10 belongs to float, some belongs to character, etc. So you can try creating an array for each of this data type depending upon how many values you need for each data type. So this is how you will have to go about in case you have a requirement like this. So does anyone have any basic questions regarding arrays?
Sir, here regarding 70, you told us here the character array,
Yes.
and it contains two characters, not 7 and 8.
Yes.
And in case of string, it also looks like same, sir, or different. It contains
See,
different.
string is another name for character array. String is nothing different. String is just another name for character array. So if you are saying that 7 and 8 are two different characters, so if you are saying that this collective thing is a string, then this 7 is an individual character of that, and these two together are forming a string.
Please repeat, sir, once again.
See, if you are talking about a value called 78, it in fact is a value 78. But if you try to look at it from the perspective of a character array, in that case, this will be stored at a different index, this will be stored at a different index, and this entire entity together will be called as character array. So just like I have created this char str10 here. So what will happen is str0 will hold the value 7. It will have the value 7. And str1 will have the value 8. This is how the internal implementation will be.
Sir, it means it take two different places in memory.
Yes, of course, it will.
But in case of string, sir, what happens?
In case of
String.
this itself is the string. I told you this str is a string only. I have written this char str here, and this I have said is a string. Yeah, tell me.
Sir, you have written separately, sir, character, str10, and also string. So it is a string itself, no?
This entire thing, this entire 78 is a string, but 7 and 8, they are two different characters. What I'm trying to explain you here is that if you want to store a number in a string type of value, in a string type of data type, then the entire number is not stored as it is. Instead, the number is broken down into every individual digit. Let's say if you have a big number 98726 in that case, if you want to work with a number, this could very well be fit in a single variable, single integer variable, say int a. This could very well fit in that. But if you are storing this type of number in a string or in a character array, then this 9 will be stored at a different place, 8 will be stored at a different place, 7 will be stored at a different place, and so on. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So whenever we are working with strings, or when you want to create strings, generally what we do is we work with characters. So we work with like A, B, C, D, or capital A, B. I mean, these things. Of course, it does not mean that you cannot have these number characters as part of the string variables. No, that's not true. You can definitely have. But generally, we create a string type of value when we want to work with alphanumeric things. Alphanumeric. Because numbers don't, let me complete first. Because numbers don't directly provide support for the alphabets. That's why this string type exists. But if string type exists, then it does allow you to work with alphabets, but it also allows you to work with numeric as well. Yeah, now tell me.
Sir, string and char is both a different type of data types, na sir?
String is not a data type. That's what I told you.
Okay.
This is just a convention. This is just a, you can say a concept that when you create a character array, it is called as string, or it is just another name for character array.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Okay. So now that you have understood the basic requirement or need for using arrays is that when you want to work with multiple values having homogeneous or same data type, then instead of creating so many different variables with different names, with different aliases, you simply create one variable and you define the size, that how many of such memory places you will require. So compiler will accordingly allocate you that much of memory, and you will be able to access each and every memory block with the help of a single identifier or with the help of a single variable name. But the problem does not end here. If I try to extend this problem where I was saying that I need to store the marks of 10 different students. Okay, I was trying to work with marks of 10 different students. Now the requirement suddenly changes, and what they want is, I don't want to only accept the marks. I also want to accept the name, the age, and the marks of the student. And not only for one student, all these things that I am writing here, that is name, age, and marks, they have to be accepted for 10 different students or 12 different students. This requirement can change anytime. I mean, this number can change anytime. So what they're saying is, now you don't have to only accept marks, you have to accept name, you have to accept age, you have to accept marks. What do you think? What type of data structure would you use?
Struct, sir, struct.
Yes, this is the perfect place for using user defined data type, that is struct. So what does struct do is, struct allows us, as I told you, it is a user defined data types. Struct basically allow us to create a new data type that is derived from the existing data types. Please note this statement. It allows us to create a new data type, deriving from the existing data types that we have. And the problem that we are currently discussing is perfectly suited to be solved with the help of structs.
Sir, driving from new.
Sorry,
Sir, can you repeat the statement definition?
definition for what?
A struct.
I have written it here. Create a new data type deriving from existing data types. What are the existing data types? What are the existing data types? Or
So that
I could
that
say,
that so that we are using in at that time in the program.
yeah, existing data types, I mean primitives. Right? And primitives are exactly the same, like int, float, char, I mean, whatever data types that you have worked with. So they all are the primitives, and you can use these data types in order to define a data type of your own. Okay. And let me tell you how does a structure is actually defined. So what you do is you have to first use this keyword called struct. After that, you will have to define a name. You will have to define a name. Let's say you are defining the name to be int. Can all of you please be on mute in case you are not speaking? I think this is creating disturbance. Okay, thank you. So firstly, you have to write the keyword struct, and after that, you have to choose the name of your new data type that you will be calling it with. So let's say I am calling this new data type with the name of student, and then I have the flexibility to define my new data type with the existing primitives that I have. So what I'm saying is that a student data type is going to have an age. It is also going to have a name. Name is a character array that I am creating as a character array. Let's say the maximum number of characters that I'll assume are going to be 20. So of course it should be greater than 20, but for now I am just keeping it 20. Otherwise you could even keep it 50, 100, whatever you want to, right? And after that I would say I want to keep marks. So what I have done is I have created a user defined data type. The name of that user defined data type is student, and that student data type is giving me the access to 10, sorry, not 10, 3 different properties or 3 different variables, you could say. The student data type is giving me the access to age, it is giving me the access to name, it is also giving me the access to this marks. That means whenever I will, okay, now remember this statement or understand this statement very carefully. What I'm saying is that this statement or this syntax that I have written here, what it has done is it has created a new data type for me. That means the student that I have written here, this student, this is no more a name. This has now become a data type. And if this has become a data type, whenever I want to create a variable using any other data type, what is the syntax for that? The syntax is simple. I have to write data type and I have to write the variable name. I have to write variable name. The similar syntax has to be followed in this case too. How? You simply have to write struct student. Now, this struct student whole thing, this is what? This is the data type. The struct student is completely the data type. And after that, whatever name that you will write, let's say S1 or let's say S2. I am creating 2 such variables, S1 and S2. So S1 and S2, they both will have access to the properties of age, marks, and name. So what I can do is I can say s1.age, s1.marks, or similarly, I can say name with respect to s1. And similarly, I can work with s2 as well, s2.age and s2.marks. So now I have created two different students. Now try to connect the dots. When I said that now the requirement has changed, and what we are required to do is we are required to accept name, age, and marks of 10 different students. So what I'm doing here is I am creating a data type named student, and I am creating, let's say, 10 different data type. Let's first assume that I'm creating 10 different variables for this data type, that is student. And once I have created 10 different variables for that, for each given variable, like S1 and S2, these are two different variables, I will have the access to age, name, and marks. So just like I am able to do S1.age, S1.marks, S1.age is different from S2.age. S1.age is different from S1.marks. That means each of this thing that I have written here, they all are pointing to some different memory location, right? So this age that I have written here, this age that I have written here, this is actually the age of first student. This is actually the marks of first student. Similarly, this is the age of second student, and this is the marks of second student. And similarly, if I have to accept the name, I could also say s1.name or s2.name. Since it's a string, we will have to use some other functions, but right now let's not get into that topic. My objective here is to make you understand what actually structures are. So are you able to understand that what actually structures mean?
सर आई हैव अ कंफ्यूजन.
Yeah, tell me.
सर जो आपने स्क्रीन के राइट तरफ में जो ब्रैकेट में लिखा है ना स्ट्रक्ट स्टूडेंट S1 S2.
Yeah.
सर मतलब हमने पहले तो स्टूडेंट नाम से हमने एक नया डाटा टाइप बनाया.
Yep.
उसके बाद हमने S1 और S2 दो अलग अलग ये डाटा टाइप और बनाए हैं हमने, या हमने ये वो दो और वेरिएबल्स को लिया है हमने इसमें.
These are just two different variables. As I told you, the syntax of creating any given variable is what? You first have to write data type, and then you will have to write the name of what the variable name should be. Similarly, I am saying that this struct student that I have written here is the data type. It's only the data type. And after that, whatever I will write, this S1 and S2 that I have written, these are the variable names. So these are the variable names for the new data type that I have created with name student.
So it means that now we are using S1 in place of student.
Yes, you are now using S1 in place of student, and you can create as many as variables for student now using a syntax like this. Getting the point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if I take it to one more advanced level, what can I do is, just like I was trying to solve a problem with the help of arrays, instead of creating 10 different variables, I was creating only one variable, and with the help of that one variable, I was managing 10 different memory locations. In the similar way, you don't have to create 10 different variables for this data type student. What can you do is you could directly write, let's say, okay, let me create a new screen. Once you have written struct student, and let's say you want to work with 10 different
Sir, you are not audible, sir.
Okay, so looks like Kai was speaking after going offline. So I don't know when did I drop off. So please let me know what was the last thing that I said when I was present in the session.
सर आपने नई स्क्रीन खोली थी बस.
So did I tell you about the arrays, the structure arrays?
Sir, you recently told us that we use the struct student in S1 and S2, and we can use those separately as student data type that we made new.
Okay, fine. So now what you can do is you can go one level advance. Okay, maybe what will I need to do is I'll just need to keep this meeting on side by side so that I can get to know in case I'm getting disconnected. Otherwise, I'll end up speaking a lot without getting to know that I got disconnected. So when you had a syntax like, okay, so when you have a syntax like struct student, and here you are specifying properties. Let's say I'm just writing one or two properties right now, int age, and let's say int marks. I'm skipping the name, but you can always have as many as properties as you want. And once you have created this data structure or this data type of your own, whenever you want to create a new variable from this data type, you will have to write struct student, and you will have to write the variable name like S1 and S2, just like I already told you. But again, the problem here is, let's say if I want to work with 10 different students, does that mean I will have to create 10 different variables for this particular data type, that is student? What do you think?
So we can use array.
Exactly. We can combine the concept of structures with the array and we can use it very efficiently. So what we can do is we can say struct student, and I can say S. Now I'm not saying S1 or S2, I'm simply saying S. And here in the subscript, I'm defining that this S is supposed to be an array of size 10. Now, what will happen is I will get the access to S0, I will get the access to S1, I will get the access to S2. This will go on, and the last variable that I'll get the access for is going to be S9. So this S0 will have its own age, will have its own marks. This S1 will have its own age, it will have its own marks. This S2 will have its own age, will have its own marks, and every given index here is going to have their own set of copies of these two properties, that is age and marks. So what we have done is we have combined the concept of structures and arrays in order to solve the problem efficiently. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what should we try here is we should try to make the syntax look as simpler as we can. So what we are doing here is, remember that when we were defining this new data type, that is student, the statement or the type of syntax that we used that time was, it was struct student, and then we used these two pair of curly braces, and in between these two curly braces we basically defined what all properties this new data type is going to have. And when we decided to create variables of this new data type, we again wrote this struct student. This struct student again has to be written, or it again has to be repeated. So this is kind of repeating multiple times whenever we will need to create a new variable for this particular data type. So in order to get rid of this, we use one other uh, concept, that is type def. Does anyone know about type def? Type def.
Sir, sir, assigning a different name to struct student. So need you to write every time struct student, sir. We simply
Okay, but
write
what
that
is the
name.
basic, or if I talk on the bottom line, what actually type def is? Can it only be used with structures, or it is a generic thing that can be used across? Okay, so see, the simplest definition for type def is it is used to create an alias for a data type. Now think about it, what I have written here. It is used to create an alias for a data type. What do you understand with this? Can anyone explain what does this statement mean?
Sir, alias means equivalent name, sir. Equivalent name.
Exactly, equivalent name. So let me come back to the very basic example that we have seen quite a lot of times if I talk about the current time. So all of you have tried creating int a, b, etc. All of you have already done that. Now, if I'm saying int a, b, you all understand that this a and b are going to be variables of integer types, right? Now, what I want is, I don't want to use this int as a data type. Instead, what I want is, I want to use my name. And what should the compiler do is, compiler should treat my name equivalent to integer. Okay. So what can I do is, I can use typedef. The simple syntax of using typedef is, you first write typedef, then you specify data type, and then after you specify the alias. That means if you want to rename the data type for your program to something else, you can use typedef for that purpose. It does not mean that it can only be applied to only a few data structures or few data types. It is something that can be used across all data types that exist in C. So the very basic example of typedef is, you write typedef, you write int here in place of data type. I am writing int, and here I am writing abhi. That's all. Now, if I want to use, or if I want to create variables of integer types, of course, I have option. I could either use this int a. This is, of course, going to create an integer type of variable for me. And I could also write abhi a. They both are the exact same thing. There is no difference at all between them. They are all same. If you write int or if you write abhi, they both are exactly same, because what I have done is, I have already informed compiler that I want to call this int with the name abhi in my program. Are you getting it? What is the purpose of typedef? What is the usage?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now what we are doing is, we are going to use this concept of typedef in order to make the variable creation with structures more simpler. So I would say typedef, and then I would write that struct student thing that I have been writing, struct student, and in between these two curly braces, I define what all properties I have. And after this, after closing this curly braces, I now define that alias, because remember, this starting from struct, ending this curly brace is actually the data type that I'm defining. And the syntax of typedef is, you firstly write typedef, then you specify what data type you want to rename, and then after that you specify what is the new alias name or the new name. Let's say the new alias name that I'm saying is simply stud, let's say, or let's say student only, or maybe I should say student. Okay, maybe what I can do is, so that it does not cause conflicts or it does not create confusion, maybe I could just say stu. That's all. So what I have done is, I have written typedef. This entire thing, starting from struct, ending this curly brace, this is the data type that I want to rename. And what I want to rename it to, I want to rename it to stu. And whenever I need to create a data type, or sorry, not a data type, a variable of this data type, that is struct student, I again have option. Either I can use struct student s1. Yes, this is possible. Or I could make it simpler and I could say stu s1. Again, they both are the same things. Just that it is a much more easier syntax for you to understand. Are you getting it?
सर एक चीज पूछनी थी.
Yeah.
सर टाइप डेफ के बाद जैसे हमने डाटा टाइप को ब्रैकेट में लिख रखा है ना सर आपने
No,
student-
this is not supposed to be put in the brackets. This is what I have used in order to explain that this is the place where data type starts, this is the place where data type ends. You don't need to put these brackets here.
और सर जो स्ट्रक्ट स्टूडेंट के बाद जो करली ब्रैकेट हमने पहले भी बनाया था, इसको बनाते
Yeah.
वक्त तो हमें वो सब चीजें वापस मेंशन करनी पड़ेगी।
I mean the property names like int, etc., int age, those things.
या यस सर।
Of course, means I have just used these black lines in order to define what all properties you want to have. I don't want to keep on writing these properties again and again. That's all.
और सर एक चीज
Now,
और थी कि जो आपने
yeah.
इससे पहले जो कंबाइन बताया था ना कि एरे और डेफ डाटा टाइप स्ट्रक्ट का कंबाइन यूज,
Yes.
तो सर आप एक बार वो कंबाइन यूज का भी एग्जांपल दिखा देते तो सही रहता।
Okay, sure. So we come here and okay. So let me use type def here. Type def struct student. I am only going to create, let's say, two properties, int age and okay, and int marks. Let's say only two things. And here I am saying this is going to be stu. That's all. Fine. And then I would say stu. I'm going to create a new variable s1, and after that I would, let's say, accept this s1. Now I will have to use dot in order to access those particular properties whichever I have defined as part of the student. So I would say s1 dot age. This is going to give me that input. I will just copy this again in order to accept the marks as well. Marks, and here I won't write any of this. Let's say here I would say output is %t, %t. So I'm printing both of these values together, separating them with a space. So it should be s1 dot age and s1 dot marks. Okay, this is all I need to do is to s1 is this. Okay, fine. So if I click on run here, then this is waiting to accept some input from me. So let's say first input is 34, second input is 78. After that, it simply said 34 and 78. So this is what I showed you with the help of a single variable. If you want to create it as an array, of course you can. But instead of writing the loop again, I would, let's say, just work with the first student variable s10, s10. Of course, I should name it to s rather than s1, but just for the demonstration purpose, I'm refraining from making a lot of variable changes. And I think that should be okay. It should not be 0. Instead, it should be, say, 2. I want to work with 2 students. But I am only working with 1 student as part of the program. Let's say first is 12, then 23, 12 and 23. So this is how you can combine all these concepts together.
सर इन 12 and 13 स्टेटमेंट s1 ब्रैकेट में जो आपने 0 डॉट एज लिखा है, तो यहाँ पे एज एक वेरिएबल के रूप में यूज हो रहा है किस?
Yeah, it's a variable. You can say it's a property, or you could also say, yes, it's a variable which is defined inside the student data type.
ओके सर, ओके।
So each object is going to get the access to this age and marks. S10 has its own age and marks. S11 is going to have its own set of age and marks. They are not going to be the same.
और सर अगर हम इसको चाहें कि लगातार ये 2 स्टूडेंट का डाटा एक साथ ले, तो फिर हम इसमें क्या चेंज करेंगे प्रोग्राम में?
You just have to put these two scanf statements in loop, just like I did it before in case of arrays.
ओके सर, जब आपने पहले बार जब आपने एरे का एग्जांपल लिखा था, तो आपने ARR फिर इंट लिख के लिखा था, तो हमने अब ARR वर्ड का यूज नहीं करेंगे क्या एरे बनाते वक्त?
No, now you will only use this. Okay, so let me just do it here itself. So instead of using it with the name S1, I am saying S only. This is also S. This is also S. This is also S. So just like I'm saying S0 here, previously in the previous example, I was saying ARR0, ARR1, things like that, or ARRI. Now I will be saying S0, S1, or SI, things like that. Only change. Okay. So if you want me to write the entire loop definition, I can write it, but maybe I would just stop here. So saying I less than equals to 1, I just want to work with 2 students. Yes, I plus plus, and here I could write these 2 scanf statements. Inside, and now I should not be writing 0 here because it will overwrite the value the next time. I should write I. Once I do that, I would be providing 4 inputs, 2 inputs for one student. Those 2 inputs for one student will include age and marks, and the similar 2 inputs for other student. But at the end of it, I am only displaying the output for first student, the age and marks of the first student. So if I click on run, let's say enter 2, 9, 4, 6, I will only get 2 and 9 in the output because I have only printed the output for the first student, not for the second student. If you want to print it for the second student or both students, you can of course put it in a loop or could use 2 different printf statements as well, since these are just 2. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is the concept of structures clear to all? Why do we create structures? What is the benefit of creating structures? So it is helping us to group multiple properties of a given entity together, which array was not allowing us. Array was only allowing what? It was allowing us to create a collection of homogeneous elements. But the structure is allowing us to create a collection of heterogeneous elements as well, right? I could create age as part of a single variable. I could create name, which could be of some different data type, and I could also create a variable with float or something like that. I hope this all makes sense.
Yes, sir.
All right. So if this is clear, let me move to the next data type.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Yeah, tell me.
Sir, when you are using type def, so why are you using means writing student and is2 both? We can only go with is2.
I didn't get it.
Sir, like when we use struct, we like define the data type structure data type actually that we are going to name it student. But when we are using type def, we can directly use is type def student struct student, and we don't have to use is2 because there is no use of student.
Okay. So you are saying that this name does not really matter here. Is this? Is this what you're trying to suggest?
Sir, I think he is saying if we हम पहले इस STU का यूज स्ट्रक्ट के आगे कर लेते तो हमें वापस नीचे लिखने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती टाइप डेफ के अंदर.
Sorry, could you please repeat?
हम स्ट्रक्ट STU करके हम पहले ही बना लेते तो हमें टाइप डेफ करके एक और चेंज की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती STU को यूज करने के लिए.
No, sir, not that. I mainly want to use that when we use struct, we declare it with a name, like here we declare with student. But when we use type def, then we have to like don't use struct student. Then we can directly say student. So why are you using 2 times student and is2? This.
So yeah, means if I'm getting
So
it right, you are
basically,
saying
we can do that. You remove that stu is2 from there, and sorry, remove that student even. Yeah.
okay, if I
And
remove
this
this
both.
student, then
Yeah.
okay. I think it might or might not work. Let me quickly try running it. Okay, it will work. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, it's like I provided some different inputs. Let me run it again. 3, 7, 9, 2. Yeah, this works. Okay, so yeah, I understand your point. In case we are using type def, then we don't have to create another name, is what you are trying to suggest, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that works as well. But yeah, means if you are using type def, then we should always use 2. But if you write another name here, then you again have the flexibility don't use stu as another name. You can directly write struct or whatever the name that you have chosen in order to use this as a data type. But if you are using type def, of course, it makes sense that you always use stu in place of struct student.
Please repeat, sir.
What the person is trying to suggest here is, previously we were writing struct student here, right? And after that we were saying that this entire thing will be renamed to what? Will be renamed to stu. That means we will never be using struct student in order to create a new data type. Instead, we will be using stu, right?
Yes.
So the point is that why should we provide two different names for the same thing? This student is also a name. This stu is also a name. So we can get rid of one of these names. And if we are using type def, then of course we cannot get rid of this name because this is the alias. So we can get rid of this name. So we don't need to provide two names to the same structure or to the same data type.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes. Structure is here is the variable, no, sir.
Stu is the data type here now.
सर तो इस कंडीशन में हमने जैसे स्ट्रक्ट के आगे कुछ नया वेरिएबल का नाम नहीं दिया तो ऑटोमेटिकली एसटीयू बन गया पूरा ये.
Yes, correct. Because we have
तो सर
used
हम
type def here.
तो सर अगर हम टाइप डेफ नहीं लिखते, स्ट्रक्ट के आगे एसटीयू लिखते और बाकी करली ब्रैकेट का सेम लिखते, तभी भी एक ही बात होती
No,
ना.
no, I don't think it will work. Yeah, it will create an error.
मतलब स्ट्रक्ट के आगे एसटीयू और लिखते, मतलब स्ट्रक्ट के आगे जो करली ब्रैकेट के बीच में
Okay.
यहाँ पे.
Yeah.
हाँ, और फिर नीचे वाला एसटीयू हटाए थे, नीचे वाला.
Yeah.
तो अब ये काम करता सर ये?
No, it won't work. Because you have to put this as struct stu. It still won't work.
Oh.
Okay. So either you write struct here, then it would start working. So it would start working 1, 2. Right. Otherwise, if you are using type def, then you can get rid of one of the names.
So it means if we use struct to make a new data type, so we have to use struct stu full name ना sir नीचे भी.
As long as you are not using type def, yes.
Okay sir.
Okay. Any other questions with respect to structures?
No sir.
Okay, fine.
Sir,
So
here,
let's, yeah.
here we have separately written array like S2. Okay. So can we write initially while writing type def, sir, that is we are writing STU, na? There can we write STU in bracket 2, sir?
I didn't. Okay, so you are saying that here can I write it?
No,
Like
below. When we write
below.
type def, sir, type def.
Okay, so when you write type def here,
Type def struct.
huh,
Okay. Write STU.
okay,
STU and in braces write 2.
like this.
2. And here is it need to write STU in the above, sir? Type def struct STU. 4, number 4 then, yes. No need to write STU here, na?
No need to write stu here, but you can also not write a thing like this, because remember this is an alias name, and alias name is equivalent to an identifier name. Now remember what all characters are permitted to use in an identifier, in a variable, or in a function name. What all things can you use? You can of course use alphabets. You can use numerics as well. And the only special character that is allowed is underscore. But what you are trying to do here is you are trying to use this subscript or this square bracket as part of the name, which will not be allowed. So you cannot do it this way. You will always have to write a proper name here, a proper identifier that is allowed in C language. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else?
No sir.
Okay. So if struct is clear, then let's move to the next thing. And the next thing is again is going to be some kind of different version of struct only, but is going to be a kind of a optimized version of struct. How it will be optimized, I'll tell you. Okay. What was happening in case of struct is, let's say if you have written two properties, int age and int marks, then each variable that you will create for this struct, let's say this stu is the new name for this data type, and you create one variable with the help of this uh, data type, that is 2. Can someone tell me what is going to be the minimum size for any variable that you will create for this particular struct? What is going to be the minimum size?
Including padding the maximum size of the
Yeah, I'm not talking about
variable.
maximum size. Let's only talk about minimum. Let's keep the padding aside as of now.
Minimum 1, sir.
Are you sure?
Sir, can you repeat the question again?
The question is that if I create a variable for this particular data type, that is this struct, what is going to be the minimum size in memory for that variable? How many bytes will it take? Just like integer take 4 bytes, character take 1 byte, things like that. What will, or how many bytes will a variable of this data type consume?
8 bytes.
4
8
bytes.
bytes.
Sir.
8
4.
bytes.
Okay, 4 and 8. So those of you who are saying 4, why do you think it should take 4?
So because there are two defined
Sir, it can be 2
int,
byte.
int are two defined.
Okay, so how 4 can you, okay, maybe one at a time, please. So the one or the person who was speaking, can you please repeat once again?
So it can be 2 bytes.
Okay, let's first talk about 2 bytes. Why do you think the size of this can be 2 bytes as well?
So because a short is a data type, जो सर
Okay.
2 byte के अंदर करता है तो उससे छोटा तो कोई है भी नहीं.
So are we using any short here? Any short data type, are we defining it?
No, sir.
So how can it be 2?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's come to the person who was saying 4. What about you?
Sir,
Those-
4 will be when we will use it as union.
I'm not talking about union. I'll come to union. Firstly, I'm talking about what is going to be the minimum size in bytes for a variable for this particular structure.
8 bytes.
8 bytes. Can someone please explain why it would be 8 bytes?
Because age is 4 bytes and marks is 4 bytes. And structure, when
Exactly.
we define, it will get the memory of age and marks both.
Correct. Exactly. Very good. So remember, whenever we are creating any variable for this struct type, that variable is getting access to two variables. One is age, the other one is marks. Remember, age is of integer type, marks is also of integer type, and one integer type value consumes 4 bytes in the memory. If we talk about 64-bit architecture. So 4 bytes for age and 4 bytes for marks. That means that particular variable, which is having access to both of these values, age and marks, it will consume at least 8 bytes in the memory. Do you all agree with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this is how it happens with struct, that the size of the variable for any given struct is going to be the sum of individual sizes of each elements plus padding. Right now, I'm not talking about padding. I'm just telling you that it is going to be at least the sum of sizes of each individual element. Now, in order to optimize this struct to one level, or at least to some advanced level, we use another data type that is, I think someone has already named that, it is union. Would anyone like to tell anything about union?
Sir, union is a common data type which
Okay.
consumes memory of the largest data type, sir. Like suppose if in a struct 3 members are there, integer, character, whatever maybe, sir. So it takes the largest size, and at a time it takes only single units, one single member, and after that it changes.
That's correct. Okay. So let me come to one of the examples. The way we create union is very much similar to the way we create structs. In structs, we used to say struct keyword. In union, we will say union keyword. Then we will define the name of the union. Let's say, again, let's call it student. It could be anything else since it's just a name. And then we will use these curly braces just like we were using in case of struct. And here we will have to specify all different types of properties just like we were specifying in struct. So here what I'm saying is I am saying int age float marks. Okay. Now, if I would have created a struct out of these two properties that I have defined in this union, the minimum size of that structure would have been what?
Sir, 8.
It would be 8 plus 4, right? 12. Because 8 for float, and 4 for int. So 8 plus 4 will give you 12 bytes, right?
Yes, sir.
But if I'm creating a union here, then what happens is the size of a union variable is always equals to the size of its biggest member, of its largest member. That means whichever property here or whichever variable here is going to consume the maximum number of bytes in the memory will become the size of this union. And which of these is going to consume the most bytes in memory?
Float, sir. 8 bytes.
Float is going to consume 8 bytes. So 8 bytes is what a union variable will consume. So it is kind of an optimized version of a structure that you are getting access to age, you are getting access to marks as well. But the size of this union variable is still less than what a structure could give you. But of course, this optimization comes with a cost. Can someone tell me what is that cost? Or what is the disadvantage if we compare it with a structure?
So as we update a value of age will be saved, but when we update value of marks, then age will be removed, and over there, memory marks will be updated, and we will lose what is saved in age.
Exactly. That's a precise answer. So when you create a union and when you create a different set of properties as part of your union, remember, you can only work with one property at a time. That means only one property of that union can be active at a very given time. So the difference between union and structure is structure, of course, we have talked about the use cases. The student was one of the perfect use cases. But union will be used when you want to work with multiple types of values, when you want to work with multiple data types, but you don't want to work with those values at the same given instant. You want to work like that at one point of instant, I will be okay with this value. At another point of instant, I would be okay with this value. So how could you understand here is that if you are creating a union like this, student, which is having two properties, age and marks. So when you are working with age, you cannot work with marks. And when you are working with marks, you cannot work with age is the simplest phenomena here. It's the simplest agenda that you need to understand. That it is giving you one level of optimization. It is reducing the size of the overall variable. So it is, of course, reducing the size of the overall program that is consuming while execution. But the cost is, the disadvantage is that you will only get access to one property or one variable at a time. So if you are working with age, you cannot work with marks at the same time. And if you are working with marks, you cannot work with age at the same time. So as soon as you will assign some value to marks, whatever existed in age will get lost. And similarly, when you will assign something to age, whatever existed in marks will get lost. So only one value at a time is what you can work with. Are you getting it?
So it
Yes.
means in whole program we
Hmm.
use only one of the age or marks.
No, you can use both of these properties. It's just that whenever you use anything, whenever you use anyone, the other property will get lost. Let's say you created a union variable. Let's say the name of the union variable is also s. You said s.age equals to 20. And then you wanted to print s.age. That's fine. And after that, you said uh, s.marks equals to 40.9, something like this. And after that, if you try to do s.age, you won't get this value 20 because this 20 is already lost.
Oh,
Okay, so this is how you can only work with one value at a time. And the value which will be overwritten at the latest time, of course, will be the value that you can work with. So since I said that s.age equals to 20, and after that I tried accessing age, it works fine. But when I said s.marks equals to something, and then I tried using s.age, I won't get the 20 value. Getting it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone? Any questions from this?
No, sir. From Telukala's doubt,
Sorry?
Telukala asked you a question uh, in the previous slide, in the right-hand side of your screen.
Huh, what was it?
That can we write STU2?
Where you want
There.
to write it? Tell me the
Yes,
line number.
there. Here, STU2 as an array directly
Here like this.
inside brackets 2.
So inside brackets you want to write 2, right? Like this?
Yes, and then defining STU S.
No, as I
Inside,
have already
inside main.
no, as I have already given you an explanation for that, you cannot define an alias like this. Remember, alias is
But
also
sir,
an identifier. Huh.
it works, compiles and runs.
Uh, okay.
I have given the code in the chat. You can check it.
Okay, wait. Okay, I understand. So the problem here is going to be that if you adapt to a syntax like this, in that case, you won't be able to create any more variables for this given structure. Once you have
Yes,
said that's two, then only variables that you have for this particular structure are going to be stu0, stu1.
let's do one.
And if you don't to
No, sir.
create more, you
Sir,
won't be able to.
even the third is also saving. Even after that, as
No,
STU2,
that will
I
say,
have
but
saved.
will create memory access limitation. Maybe.
Sorry, I didn't get
Memory
it.
access violation.
Could you please repeat?
If I assign stu3 to something
Uh,
else, then
uh,
it can happen that
of course.
OS will give an error, memory access violation.
Exactly, of course. Means you have only
But,
asked for two structure types to be allocated. Yes.
sir, but I have done the same, and it is allocating memory also and giving the
See,
output
this is
with the.
this is this is situation
Now,
specific.
now, Shreyas, try
Yeah.
assigning stu 1 lakh to 3, then you will get memory access violation. Check
Sorry,
it.
sorry.
stu inside brackets, write 1 lakh or something like that. You will get
See,
the
that's
I
what
memory.
I'm
have.
trying to make you understand here is that it is completely dependent on the scenario. Maybe if the memory is available, it happens just like an array. Let's say if you have created A10, it means that you cannot use A10 because the latest or the maximum index that you can go up to is going to be A9. But if the memory exists or the memory is free, the operating system does allow you the access to A10 variable as well. I mean A10 index as well. The same thing exists here. If the memory exists, if some memory is free, it will allow you the access to that memory, but it is very, very error prone. Maybe at one point of time, you are trying to access that memory, it is working fine, but at some later point of the same program, it might give you error because you never asked for that memory to get allocated. This is not part of your program, so it can get deallocated any point. Are you getting it?
Yes, sir, got it.
Okay. All right. So is the union type clear?
Yes, sir.
All right. So if the union type is clear, let us talk about one more thing, and it is going to be enum. Does anyone know about enum?
It's
Does
a
anyone
shared
know about
memory data type.
shared memory?
No, sir, that is union. Sorry,
Okay.
it's like aliasing the names of variables.
Aliasing the names of variables, is it?
Yes, like integers.
Okay.
Giving
You mean
integers
integer
some name.
values?
Yes, giving integer value some name.
That I can understand. Okay. So what you are doing is you are trying to provide aliases. Provide aliases to, let's say, integer values. Right? Why someone would like to do that? Can someone give me an example, or can someone think of a scenario that why would you like to give a name to a given integer value? Let's say you want to assign a value of 0, or let's say you want to assign a value of 1 to some given variable in your program. Instead of writing 0, what you want is you want to write 1, or you want to write 2, something like this. So what you want is that 1 should always be treated out, or should be always equivalent to 0, and or accordingly 1, and 2 should always be equivalent to 2, something like this. Can someone think about why would someone like to have a scenario like this?
So switch statements, instead of giving values, we can give names properly.
Okay,
Like
but
I need someone to type some. We are going into a shop, and we want to assign fruit of like fruits some value 0, and vegetables to 1, and
okay,
like that, and then calculate the total fruits someone bought and total vegetables someone bought. For that we can use it.
but what is the main advantage we are getting here? What is the end objective,
Sir,
end goal?
advantage is that we are saving our memory.
We are saving our memory. Are you sure?
So because we
No,
are
not.
combining whole name to a single element.
You are combining what?
We are combining sir a whole. I think I want to say that 10 जैसे O N E हम पूरे को एक 1 के उसमें डाल देंगे तो हमारी मेमोरी भी बच रही है सर इसमें. We are
No, not
assigning whole
exactly.
value.
Sir,
Not
actually, we are
exactly.
just making our time use so that we could efficiently do our work.
Yes,
Sir, for
that is the
fixed
point.
set of values, sir.
Sorry.
Variables with the fixed set of values.
Exactly. Variable with the fixed set of values. But the other person, whatever he said, I completely agree with that point. It is what it is actually made for the programmers. It probably has nothing to do with the memory. It probably has nothing to do with any other concept, but it is of very, it is of, I would say, uh, or it is going to be very helpful when you want to talk in terms of a very important term whenever you are writing code. Code readability. Now, what is code readability? Now, assume you are writing a complex program, or let's say you are working in a team of 4 or 5 people, or even more than that. Let's say the code that you have written, you have used some of the constants there. And when you are asking for someone else from the team to review your code, it becomes very, very difficult for anyone else to understand what other person might have written. Let's say if I'm writing some code and if I'm providing that code to be reviewed by one of my colleague will of course face some difficulties while reading that code. So I have to make every effort possible so that I can make my code readable for the other person. And it's not only for other persons. Let's say if I'm writing code today and I want to understand what I have written today 10 days later, or let's say 1 month later, or let's say 6 months later, I will of course forget what I would have written previously. So even if I am reading my entire code myself, I will have to get some hints. And that's why people try to add comments to their code to the extent possible. And that is exactly why we create enums as part of any programming language. So what happens is, as someone has rightly pointed out, that enum is going to be values, fixed values. Now, let me talk about a very specific example. Say you are creating an enum, and uh, let's say the name of the enum is flight seat type. Flight seat type. Now, as you all know that if I talk about specifically the economy class, there are only 3 types of seats available, right? One is going to be window side. One is going to be window side. Let's say, what is the other one? Other one is going to be middle. What is the last one? Last one is going to be A cell. Now, these are the only three options that are available in terms of seat types when you are booking a ticket for economy class, right? Now, of course, instead of storing this entire big string that is window, middle, or ASL, what did you decide is you decide that instead of storing window, middle, or ASL, I would say that window will be given a value 0, middle will be given a value 1, ASL will be given a value 2. So that when you are storing it in database, of course, you are trying to, uh, as the other person rightly said, you are trying to save some storage, some bytes when you are storing it some other program or some other file, right? So instead of writing this entire thing, this entire window here, you are only writing 0. You are only saving 0. So if you talk about on a very broad perspective, maybe this might not be of the very best thing, or might not be very advantageous in a long run. But of course, if your application is growing very rapidly and you are even concerned about 1 or 2 bytes, or let's say 100 bytes, then of course it might make sense. But in most of the cases, it doesn't really make sense, or it doesn't usually be the case. I mean, when you are writing applications, you are not generally concerned about a few of the bytes, maybe hundreds of the bytes. You are okay.
Sir, how will it save memory?
So what you are doing is, instead of storing window as a string, so window will require what? Window will require WINDOW. It will require 6 bytes to be saved. Whereas if I'm saving it as 0, so I can even save it as short int. So it will only require 2 bytes.
But sir, like if I write window in code, then the code size will get increased, right?
That's what I'm saying. Means in
It
most
will
of the
be
cases, you
same
will
in
not be
both
concerned.
cases. In
Well,
both
see,
cases, even
as
if
long
I
as the see, that is a very, very distant scenario, that you are trying to reduce the length of the code by replacing the value 0 with the window. I'll come to that as well. Yeah, that might be considered one of the scenarios, one of the distant scenarios, I would say. So yeah, this is
actually,
one thing.
sir, what I am talking about is the size of the text part. Like I am writing a code, so every like if I write in Notepad, then every character will take some space in
I
Notepad.
understand your point.
So in
And I
both
am
cases,
giving a
that will be
clarification for
same.
that part only, that this is something that many people would not be actually worried about.
Yeah.
Even people would like to have descriptive names. Let's say if window can be given another descriptive name which is involving more bytes, then people will prefer to go with that particular name, even if it is requiring more bytes for your program to store. Because people generally go for readability. This thing is not of a concern for them.
Yes, I got it.
Okay. So yeah, all right. Now, this is one of the points. I'm keeping it away for now, this memory thing, because as I told you, this is a very distant scenario and might not be, respected in every company, every industry. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that what did you decide is, let's say you decide to use 0 in terms of window, 1 in terms of middle, 2 in terms of ASL. Now, this is something that one developer might have decided, that I will use 0 in place of this, 1 in place of this, 2 in place of this, and so on, in case there are any more values to be added. Now, when you are working with code, or when you are writing the program, and you say that seed type is equals to 0, or let's say seed type is equals to 1, or let's say equals to 2, then of course the programmer that might have written this code might be able to recall that 0 meant that, 1 meant that, 2 meant that. Okay, this is something that everyone can understand. But let's say if someone else is trying to read the code, or you yourself are reading this code after a long time, then you will probably get confused, or will probably need some time to recall what does this 0, 1, and 2 means. But instead, if you are writing it like seed type equals to window or ASL or something, then in that case, there is a very little chance that you will get confused. Sorry. There is a very little chance that you may get confused, because you are getting a descriptive, I would say you are getting a complete description of what this statement is trying to do. This statement is trying to assign either a window or a ASL type to this variable called seed type. Now, the problem is, what does this window is, or what does this ASL is? Now, this window or ASL can be what? Can be created as an integer as well. Let's say I can create it as an integer, const int window equals to 0, and I could very well do that, right? But the problem is, what if someone tried to update this window variable sometime, or if somehow this gets updated? Then in that case, my entire code will crash, because window was supposed to be meant as 0, but now that someone has updated its value, it is no more 0, it is something else. And since this value has changed, so this seed type will, of course, will hold some I would say invalid value, which it was not supposed to hold. So instead of creating it like a variable, what we do is we create a enum. We create a enum where we say seed type, and here in this enum we define all the type of possible values that this enum can have. Let's say I'm defining possible values as window, ASL, and middle. Now, whenever you will create this variable seed type, make sure you always create it with this data type. Remember, this enum is also a data type, just like union, just like structure. And if you want to create a data type, or sorry, a variable for this enum, how would you do that? Is you would say enum seed type S1. Now this enum S1 is something that belongs to this particular enum. And when you will try to assign some value to it, you can directly say S1 equals to window, S1 equals to ASL, or S1 equals to middle. Now you know that window means 0, ASL means what, 1, or middle means 2. But you are actually writing it in much more descriptive manner as part of your program, so that it becomes easier for you to understand later on. Or even if someone else is trying to read your code, it becomes easier for them as well to understand what does this value actually mean. And since we have said that this seed type is actually going to be of this type enum, that means it will not take any other value apart from this enum. That means if you will try to assign it some value, say 4, it won't take it, because 4 is not one of the defined values in this enum. The only 3 defined values are window, ASL, and middle, which are equivalent to 0, 1, and 2. So by default, it will try to map each of this value with an integer value. So window will be mapped with 0, ASL will be mapped with 1, and middle will be mapped with 2. This is how it will work. The first value will be 0, the next value will be 1 incremented to that, the next value will be 1 incremented to that. That's how it will work. But if you want, you can overwrite the values as well. Let's say you don't want window to get 0, instead you've got window to get 1. You can write 1 here. Now ASL will automatically get 2, or middle will automatically get 3. This is also possible. Or let's say you want window to be 0 only, so you leave window untouched. So you can directly say that I want ASL to be 4 or something like that. So I'll create a new enum and I'll tell you what all different possibilities could happen. So enum seed type. So let's say this is window, this is middle, and this is ASL. Of course, there has to be a comma between these 3 values, but I'm skipping that comma because I will be assigning them some values. So I'm scrapping that comma for now. So if you don't define any explicit value, by default, window will get 0, middle will get 1, and ASL will get 2. This is the by default nature. But if you want window to be given a explicit value, let's say 1, then you can say that. And if you give 1 to window, then middle will automatically get 2, and ASL will automatically get 3, because the next value will be 1 incremented to the previous value. But if you want to assign an explicit value to each of this variable, or to each of this window, middle, or ASL, you can also do that. Let's say window is 1, middle is 4, and ASL is 7. You can also do that. So what you are doing is you are only providing names to some fixed values, so that you can use those names as part of your code to increase the code readability. That's all. Are you able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. One another example of this is, let's say you can define an enum, say day, and this day will have or will consist of many more elements like Monday, Tuesday. This is very typical example that people use while explaining enums. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It can go up to Sunday, or even if you want to add more values, of course you can add, because it's your user defined data type, and you can add as many as values as you want. I hope all this is making sense.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this was all about enums. So we have discussed about user defined data types, which was the main thing that was introduced or discussed as part of week 8. So week 8 was all about user-defined data types. We have studied about structures. We have studied about unions. We have studied about the last data type that we have studied is enums. Week 7 was all about arrays. Week 7 was all about arrays. Now, coming to week 9. Week 9 is dynamic memory allocation. Can someone tell me what is dynamic memory allocation? Can someone tell me what is it?
So it is a memory allocation which we have.
Sorry, your voice is kind of, it is kind of breaking for me.
So now is it clear?
Yes, it's better.
Yeah, dynamic memory allocation is allocation of memory which is asked from user to allocate when at the compiling time actually, and it is compiled in heap section rather than in stack, and how much like whatever memory we will like, that much memory will be given, and it saves wastage of memory. It saves memory.
Okay, fine. So I just want to correct one point, that dynamic memory allocation is not something that is allocated at compilation time. Which type of memory is allocated at compile time?
So it is runtime allocation. The
Yeah,
stack memory is compile time allocation.
exactly. The static memory allocation happens at compile time. Static memory allocation means all the variables that you are creating, like int, ab, like this structure and all. These are all the things that will be allocated as soon as the program gets compiled. Right. But I would like to take the same example that we have been taking so far in this particular session. You want to accept marks, or let's say some details of students. Now, I'm not talking about what type of details you want to accept. All I'm saying is you want to accept some details about students. Now, it could only be marks. It could be even some additional details like name, age, we have talked about in this entire session. Okay. Now, the thing is that when you are writing a program, you are unsure about that how many student details you will be requiring to work with. That means at the time of uh, uh, writing this program, you don't know whether you will be working with 10 students, 12 students, 14 students, 16 students, 20 students, 50 students, 100 students. You don't know. Can someone tell me what can we do in order to get rid of this problem? Because you
So we
don't
can
really
run a
know.
loop.
You can run a loop for what?
So taking the input, like we can give like
Okay, but
what is the
let's say
value of
let's say
n.
you decide to work with array. You decide to work with an array. What is the size that you will define for this array? Because whenever you are working with array, it is mandatory for you to define the size.
So
So
we
what
will
will be
take
the
this
size that
input
you will
from
define?
user, that how many students will he work with.
I agree with your point, but maybe in one of the sessions I did talk about this thing, that modern compilers do allow this thing, that let's say you create this variable int a, you accept this value from the user, and after that you define array based on this array or the input that you have accepted from the user. This works with modern compiler, but this is not a recommended approach, because the reason is this a is not a constant variable and it can change anytime. And if this variable is changing, it becomes a point of confusion for the compiler whether this array size has to be shrinked or expanded. So that's why it is not at all recommended to use a variable as the size of an array. One thing is you can define it as a constant, but if you're defining it as a constant, it becomes mandatory for you to initialize it at the time of declaration. So you won't be able to put the user input into this variable. So what would you do? Can someone think of a solution? What can be done here? Okay, what is going to be the brute force thing here? What will be the last thing you will try here in case you are not getting any solution? Anyone try to give it a guess? I hope I'm still audible. I'm still present in the meeting. Yes. Yeah, maybe you can take a minute and think about it.
So what is the main question? Can you repeat?
The question is that if you are unsure about the number of students that you are working with, how would you declare the size of this array?
So rather than going to a array, we can use linked list.
You can use linked list. I didn't get it.
So, like I don't know how many students are there, but as I take input of a student, then I take is whether there is any else student, then I take an input. But
Hmm.
when there is end, then I like close the
But
program
even
and
when you're
it is
defining a
linked.
linked list, how would you define that how many number of nodes exist? Okay, I can understand that you might be able to create it this way. Let's say you create a struct linked list. Let's say you are storing some data here and then you are again creating a pointer to the same type.
Pointer, yeah,
Struct star
pointer.
link. Okay, I understand that. But this is a very advanced approach. How would you solve it on a very basic level? Okay, see, the very basic thing here is going to be, because when you are working with the link, okay, I don't want to come to linked list as many people might not be aware about it. So I'll for now leave it. Okay. So when you are unsure about the number of entities that you will be working with, only thing that you could do here is you will have to take the maximum size as the array. So if you know that 100 are going to be the maximum students, you will have to define the size to be 100. There is no other option for you. Do you agree with this?
Yes, sir.
So now, can someone tell me what is the disadvantage of this approach?
So if we will work with 10 students, then 90 students allocate like memory allocation will go in waste. No use of it.
Exactly. Exactly. So the problem here is that if you have defined the size of this array to be 100, as soon as the compiler gets or the program gets compiled, the memory will be allocated for 100 students, but you are only making use of 10. That means the memory that was allocated for 90 more students is kind of going waste, not used at all, right? So this is one of the disadvantages. But in order to get rid of this disadvantage, what we do is we use the concept of dynamic memory allocation. So now, once we know that how many students are we going to be working with as part of the program, we have already taken an input. Then we use functions like malloc, calloc. Let's not talk about realloc as of now. We use functions like malloc and calloc in order to request for some extra memory for the program from the compiler when the program is already under the execution. That means when the program started, it didn't require any memory to work with. But when the user has provided us with the input that I will be working with 12 or let's say 50 students, after getting this input value from the user, you can use this malloc function in order to request as much as memory as you require, or I would say only as much as memory as you require for your program. Let's say you require to work with 12 students and each student required 10 bytes. So you would only require 12 into 10, 120 bytes for your program. Nothing less, nothing more. You will be requesting for the exact amount of memory that you will be working with. Are you getting the point? Why do you need or why? What is the advantage of dynamic memory allocation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I talk about the syntax is quite simple. When you do malloc, you have to specify that how many chunks of memory have to be allocated. I would say number of chunks, and what is the size of each chunk. Size of each chunk. So let's say you want 120 bytes of memory because each student is consuming 10 bytes. So you would specify 10 here in the size part. That is the second argument to malloc. And you would specify how many number you want to work with 12 students. So you would work with 12. So you are requiring for 12 chunks, and each chunk is of size 10 bytes. This is how you would work with malloc. You are saying 12 comma 10. But the only difference between calloc is, at least from the usage point of view, instead of writing 12 comma 10, instead of writing two different arguments, you just have to provide one argument, and you can directly say 120, or you could say 12 into 10. I mean, whatever you want. 12 into 10 or
That is
120,
in
they both are
malloc.
the same things. Sorry?
That is in malloc. In calloc, we have to give comma. Calloc takes two arguments.
Okay. It's like I'm mixed up between the two. Yeah, all right, you are correct. So this syntax is for calloc, and this syntax is for malloc. Yeah, thanks for correcting it. So in malloc, you directly specify the number of bytes you require. In calloc, you specify what are the number of chunks that you require and the size of each chunk. Right? This is the difference as far as the usage is concerned. But can someone tell me the fundamental difference? If there any difference
Zero
in terms of
assignment.
how do these two functions behave?
Calloc assigns 0 initially for all the.
Sir, malloc is not contagious memory, but calloc is the contagious memory, and calloc automatically initialize the values to 0, and malloc doesn't.
Exactly. This is the difference. So if you use calloc, then all the memory chunks will automatically be allocated with the default value of 0. Whereas what happens in case of malloc, if they are not getting allocated to 0, what is their value then?
Garbage.
Yes, of course. They will hold garbage value at that point of time. Right? So yeah, means these two are the functions, calloc and malloc, that you use in order to request for dynamic memory allocation. We have already talked about why do you want to work with dynamic memory allocation, so that you can avoid the memory usage as much as you can, so that you only work with, or you only request that much of memory that you actually require for your program to work. There are some other programs, one other function as well, that is realloc. Of course, it might happen that firstly you try to request for some specific chunks, let's say 100 bytes of memory. Let me complete first. Let's say you decide to request for 100 bytes of memory first, and after that in the same program you thought that 100 bytes might not be enough, and I want to expand it, or let's say I want to request for 120 bytes now. I want to add 20 bytes. So you can request the operating system to allocate you 20 more bytes with the help of realloc. Yeah, yes, please tell me.
Sir, here in case of calloc, initial 0 means what, sir? The memory address will be started from 0 now onwards, no, sir?
No, it is not like that. What we said is that each memory block is going to have the value 0. Let's say if you have requested for say 4 into 4, that is 16 bytes. That means you have requested for 4 integer values. So these are 4 integer values. So each of this integer value will be initialized with the value 0, is what we said.
This is the address of the memory location, no, sir?
Address of memory location, what?
This is what, sir, actually, this 00 is what, address or bytes, sir? What is
value?
this,
Value.
right?
0 is the value. 0 is the value at that particular memory location. It's not the address.
It is index to the memory.
No,
Memory
it's not an index.
location.
It's the value itself, that if you will try to access this particular memory location, you will get 0 from there. Let's say if you are saying int A equals to 10, then what is happening is there is a similar memory location somewhere in the memory, and 10 is stored in that memory. Similarly, this is what is happening in Kellogg. There are some memory chunks that are available, and you are storing some value in it. So that means when you will try to access those memory locations, you will get the value 0. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, there is one very important thing while working with a dynamic memory allocation is, since we have explicitly required for some extra memory from the operating system, that is using malloc or calloc or realloc function, it becomes our responsibility to clear that memory as and when we are done with that particular memory usage or that particular memory chunk. So let's say we wanted to work with 50 students, we have completed all the operations with those 50 students, we will have to use a function named free in order to free the memory that we have requested the operating system for. So you will have to provide the reference of the memory that you want to get cleared, and this is the way you will be able to release that memory from the program, so that the same memory can actually be allocated to some different process that might require it. So this is also one very important thing, that whenever you are using dynamic memory allocation, make sure that you free that memory block whenever you are done with that usage. Did you get it? I hope this is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, then this is pretty much that I wanted to do in today's session. I wanted to give you an overview of all the course concepts that were discussed as part of these 3 weeks, and I'm pretty much done with that. So in case you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yes, anyone?
No, sir.
Okay, so shall I assume that everything from the class is clear today?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So in that case, maybe we can end the session for today. Once again, apologies for starting the class a little bit late today.
Sir,
Yeah.
is there particular weightage for any week?
No, there is no particular weightage. All the weeks are equally important. As far as the end term exam is concerned, yes.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so
Sir means all week have the equal weightage, right?
yes, true.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so thank you everyone for joining with us in this session. Hopefully you would have learned something, and I wish you all the best for your upcoming examination, and we'll probably meet very soon the next time. Till then, bye bye, take care, and wish you all the best once again.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you, sir.